Welcome to the Elevate podcast. I am so excited to introduce you to today's guest, a really just inspiring human being who we've only known for a short time, but who is definitely going to be a game changer in our life. This is Dan, also known as Coolman Dan, or
some respect on his name.
Coffee Dan.
I'll take it. Either or is fine. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. And we met under very serendipitous terms as well, you know, because of the truck and the vibes and Art Basel. So I'm glad we could make this happen a month later.
But you know, when the vibes are vibing, everything just aligns.
Yeah, I agree. I wish more things worked this way.
I know.
You know? Wish it was easier to make friends like you guys, you know?
It's easy for, just really incredible people to come together, especially when you're working for one mission to elevate lives, change the world, and just really inspire other human beings and bring and connect human beings together.
For sure. That's what I try to do. Hopefully it's working.
Well, we think it's working. Coolman Dan, tell us, how did we get here?
Yeah. Well, long story short, I mean, this is a summertime dream that I had back maybe during June or July of this past year, 2024, where, I started really leaning into more IRL experiences, and part of it happened very naturally, and then part of it also happened very, by design. I always wanted to do more stuff in the real world, which is hard enough for any content creator who puts their work mostly out on social media and digitally, right? How do you bring a digital experience into, the physical world? But, also just with the way that my personal story worked out, by the time that I really garnered a large enough following for me to do this, COVID happened in 2020 and nothing IRL was really able to happen. So, I look at the past 2 years as like my IRL events really started gaining traction because the world opened back up and was allowing for stuff to start happening like that. Mainly in like international cities, like my art shows in Hong Kong and Shanghai, and they were such big hits. And it was like, really, to me, this is 2023, I started seeing just how powerful the IRL experiences are. People love my stuff digitally, of course, on social media, but when you bring it into reality, it's a whole different thing, and it's an excuse to bring people together, and just, you can't replicate that any other way. It's just such an in-the-moment thing. And so I said, how can I make more of these shows happen, in America? The cool factor is it's essentially a venue on wheels. We could bring this to any city, set up the roof, have a DJ or a live band up there, sling coffee and refreshments and food out of the window. It's a fully functioning coffee truck. And just, I slung my art up all in it and around it and on it. And then the cherry on top is the basketball hoop in the back, which tied a bunch of loose ends together and just is the amazing final touch in terms of the magic. So we debuted it at this past Art Basel and just drove it around, and we partnered with some venues and some DJs, and I mean, it was a hit no matter where we brought it. And sometimes the coolest moments were just us driving around and people would get out of their cars during Art Basel traffic to start shooting some hoops. Like the UPS delivery driver would get out from his truck and just start playing basketball with us, and it was just incredible. So it's nice to be able to bring people together that way, and this is like the first big test that I did with my brand and my world, and it works so well. And
at Art Basel.
Art Basel
one of the biggest.
to debut it at, yeah, but also anywhere else for whatever reason,
So we got to experience at Art Basel, which was so fun. We got to hang out on the roof, and we saw some footage of you guys with the DJ. Like, what a cool moment. Take us to your beginnings. Like, what trailblazed the beginning of Coolman Coffee Dan? How did you build your following? Like, tell us everything. Yeah. What was the big why?
Yeah. Well, I always doodled growing up. That was always like a big way that I expressed myself. It's also the only reason I was semi cool in school. as like a middle schooler, people would be like, oh yeah, that's the kid that like makes YouTube videos and draws funny things on his Spanish homework and on the school lunch trays. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. And this is like, 2010, like, it wasn't even really cool to be creative or artist like it is today, thanks to, TikTok culture and content creator culture overall. But back then, like, I was still very much a loner and trying to find myself, and I definitely didn't think being an artist for a living was remotely possible. But I stuck with the doodling thing just as, a hobby. And in 2017, I had my first animation that I ever attempted in even making. I really didn't know how to animate, and I just tried it, made it, uploaded it, and it went ridiculously viral. And that was an animation called Snakes Have Legs, which in a very comedic way touched upon, like, not believing everything you read on the internet, and, fake news, and just, using the internet as the amazing tool as I think it is, and using it for good things. And a lot of people resonated with that. But that started my brand as you see it today. It just, so many people started following me, and I didn't even have any other animations. I was like, I barely know how to make these, so I had to learn very quickly. And it just forced a very simple style, because I also didn't have the animation equipment. I really didn't, have much. But they resonated with the stories and the characters and their personalities. And I really doubled down on the mental health part of my world, because shortly after I started animating is when really a ton of shootings started happening in America, which really, rocked me to my core. I was, 22 at the time, still in college, and I started making animations talking about, how I think the world is mostly good. Even though bad things happen, you have to focus on, the good in people. Otherwise, we're kind of doomed as a society. So once I started making deeper messages like that, it resonated tenfold with many, many people, and it started tackling more complex topics such as, depression and anxiety, but also love and friendship, and telling those stories and those messages through simple characters. And that's when I think I discovered something special there, and I really kept going with that. And that was 2017, 2018, and it I think really started to hit a second major wave in terms of resonating with people during 2020, when a lot of people were at an all-time anxious and depressed because they were stuck at home and just doom scrolling and taking in a lot of bad vibes on their social media timeline. And during that time, I doubled down in trying to brighten people's timelines with my work. So that really, I think, put it into hyperspeed for the next few years. And now it's this worldwide thing where there's worldwide shows. The characters and the message also resonates with anybody because it's so universal, regardless of whether you speak English or not. You could be from any region in the world, speak any language, regardless of your, cultural background or religious background or, anything. Like these characters and these messages resonate with everybody, and ideally bring out the good in you and help you see the good in your fellow humans. So once I saw how big this thing was getting, my next real big dream was to meet more people in real life that, maybe know my work or don't know my work, but I get to see them resonate with my work in real time. And that's how things like the coffee truck came to be. It just means and excuses to bring people together, using my world and my message and my artwork as like, the vehicle, no pun intended, to do that. But, also just like an excuse for people to get together, because there's, I think, especially in the times we live in, it's people crave it now more than ever to just like get outside. They don't even need the excuse for drugs or alcohol. Like, people thought they needed to back in the day. Getting together in the, on a nice Sunday, sunny afternoon like we find ourselves here to just sip some coffee. We're here at Panther Coffee here in Miami, and listen to some music and hang with your friends, like that to me fills me with so much joy, because that's kind of like what I could have hoped for, when starting this thing, and seeing it come together now more and more is really cool.
So we're here at Panther Coffee today, and not only did you create an incredible atmosphere for us to like hang out and vibe, listen to the DJ, sip some incredible coffee. The owners here are just absolutely amazing, but we're also giving back to a community. Like, tell us why that's important to you to also like use this influence to impact others in that way.
Yeah, ideally, everything that I do is for a good cause, whether it's, your own personal mental wellness, or in this case, it's, bringing back to all the efforts going into fighting the LA wildfires, which I experienced very directly, which is very unfortunate and very scary. I've lived in LA for the past few years, and it was scary enough for me, but I'm, by no means a LA or California native, so I can only imagine how terrible it is. Even more so for the folks that were born and raised there. So, we thought to make an event like today, partnering with Panther, pulling up the cool coffee truck to, just on a Sunday, bring people out, sip some coffee, chill, listen to some live music, all proceeds, whether it's you're getting a cup of coffee, getting some of the limited edition merch inside, or even getting one of my art pieces, all proceeds are going to the LA wildfire efforts, which is a great cause, and something that I would love to do more of. Unfortunately, there's plenty of reason to do stuff like this, what we're doing here today. There's always a need for at least awareness, definitely donation wise, people turning up to have fun, connect with their friends, and make some good memories, but in the meantime donate stuff to a good cause. It's something that is really the backbone of my whole brand. There's always a larger reason for the smiles and the laughs, yes, but also like making sure that we leave the world a little bit of a better place than when we found it. So I'm happy to be doing stuff like this here today, and working with amazing partners like Panther to do that. So plenty more stuff like this in the future for sure.
I love all of this, and of course you've gotten to this point and you've built this tremendous community around Coolman Coffee Dan. But was there ever a point when you were like, what, like this just, I don't want to do this anymore, or this is too hard, this is just not my vibe anymore? Do you ever encounter any of that, especially as a creative?
Oh yeah, all the time. Any artist, any creative goes through that, and that's, I guess, the uphill battle of being a creative, right, and doing art for a living, whether that's photography or music or painting or whatever it is. And that's why it's even more important for you to stick with it, even through the rainy days, so to speak. There's been plenty of times where I've had long stretches of depression and anxiety in my personal life, and I've been very public about this, where I felt like, I'm just going to quit. This is not it, and I hate how this makes me feel. And especially as you get older, at times it feels like, the world's doing everything it can to weigh you down. But really that's just a big old test. And if you really love something, you stick with it and you push through. And that's how I feel now more than ever about my art and my characters and the messages that I'm trying to spread. But you listen to any, entrepreneur or artist or anybody going about their challenges, there's always a seemingly large obstacle that maybe you feel like you met your match and you can't overcome it, but you always overcome it if you persevere and you stay consistent. And it's a big thing that I try to also advocate, especially to my fellow artists, is if times get tough, burnout is a real thing. You gotta of course tend to your mental wellness and make sure you're taking care of yourself, but more often than not, the answer is to push through and keep with it, and you'll be very happy that you did on the other side. And I've experienced a lot of life in the 29 years of being here, more than I think maybe most people could say. And I could be super downtrodden about that, and I could be like feeling bad about myself, or I could use that experience to, explain, show other artists that if I could do it, you could do it too, and I hope that I could turn, my own negative experiences into other people's lessons that they could learn, because I did it, and I'm sure everybody has their own unique sets of challenges that they swear is so unique to them, and that they're destined to fail, and there's nothing that anybody could do about it. But that's never the case. There's always a way for you to make it onto the other side, and often come out better than you've ever, thought you could be. So that almost accidentally along the way became a huge part of my message today.
That's so inspiring. We talk a lot on the podcast about moving the goalposts. You have all these big goals and visions and dreams for what you're doing and what you're creating and what's next. But, we believe in like sitting in the moment and be like, oh, this is it. This is actually like what I work for. Is there a moment in your career that you're like, oh my gosh, I've made it?
Oh, probably I could count a few times on one hand. I'm so hard to impress with myself. And as soon as one thing happens, I'm like immediately onto like, all right, well, now we got to do the next thing, moving the goalpost. But it is important to take a moment, right? And I've gotten better at that over time. But I think the first big moment for me was, there was like little things like, the first person to get a tattoo of my work, and like, first time to get like recognized in public for my work. But to me, it's like, it's not necessarily about what impresses me, but maybe what catches the attention of the folks that I love and respect, like my family and my friends. And in 2020, I got Forbes 30 Under 30, and that's when I think that's when it clicked for people like my grandpa, who is like, oh, that's amazing. So that's what you've been up to the past few years.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah,
okay.
Like stuff like that can make sense to folks that, whether you understand the artist world, social media world, or whatever. Someone like my 86-year-old grandpa sees something like Forbes 30 Under 30, and he's like, that's amazing. And so there's moments like that. I published my first book back in 2021, which was really cool. Throwing my own art shows, and first time going to like China for one of my like collabs with K11 Museum out there. Like, there's so many different levels of validation, but to me, I think it's whatever impresses the grandpas to the world. That's what I'm all about, Yeah.
Do you have any advice for aspiring creators?
Yeah, plenty. I think the main thing kind of goes back to what I said about persevering and pushing through, and of course there's challenges, and you can make up all the excuses in the book, but you're talking to a person that I got my start with animation, but I didn't even have a drawing tablet. I didn't have the equipment at all. I just kind of had a dream and hoped that it would work out, and I would draw on paper and take a photo of it on my phone and just figure out how to make it move in my editing program. And so there's always a way to do it, if you have the idea and the dream. But I think today, because the world has changed so much since when I started in 2017, and I'm constantly having to reevaluate and reinvent, and just evolve. There's definitely like a fight for attention, right? So it's harder now to break out more than ever before. How do you get people's attention, right? So I think a lot of people ask me, how do I find my own style? Whether it's, again, any form of art, how do I find my own style, my own voice? Because there's so many things out there, and you think you find your own style, and then you find out like 50 other people did it, and you feel like it's not original. So for me, it's like, just do whatever makes you happy. It could be the most niche, random stuff, maybe seemingly to you, but if you post it online and you just put it out there into the world, it'll find its community. It'll find the people that it resonates with, no matter how much you think it won't. So I am a big advocate for, no matter, even if you think it's terrible, even if you think it's not done, put it out. Put it out. Stop saying it'll be done next week or next month. It'll never be done. It'll never be perfect, but put it out. My first animation, Snakes Have Legs, that I put out, I had the idea at 3 in the morning. I was thinking about maybe going to bed and doing it next morning, but I remember being like, I'm going to forget about it in the morning. Let me just make it. And I'm so glad that I did, because that changed my life. So you never know what idea, and that's after 10 years of putting stuff online, by the way. So I was on YouTube, as early as I can remember, always trying to figure out the thing that'll get people's attention. So although it was my first animation, it was after 10 years of creating stuff. So you never know what's going to be the thing that you make that puts you on. So the best way, and you can never predict it, so the best way to get around that is just to put everything out there.
I love that so much. And you spoke to something too that I don't even know if you meant to emphasize this. You said that was year 10. So I think often as just consumers, we are constantly, what do they say? Comparison is a thief of joy. We're stealing our own joy because we are often comparing ourselves, but even more so comparing ourselves, we are comparing our year 1 with someone's year 10 and what it takes. So your year 15 compared to my year 5. And so I think that's something that is so powerful to acknowledge. One, to not compare yourself, but if you're going to, at least compare apples to apples. This isn't...
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, people also like to think they just blew up overnight, but that's rarely the case. There's examples of extreme luck, sure, but I think it's way more sustainable for the people that maybe they seem like they blew up out of nowhere, but they put in, years or 10 years or 20 years, and now they know what to do with this moment and how to run with it. And that's how I like to think it happened with me. I said, oh, okay, that was the one. Let's go. I was ready for it. I've been thinking about this moment for the past 10 years of my life. So yeah, you have to keep just putting things out there, and that is, I think, it sounds easier than not, right? Because people are, especially artists and perfectionists, you're so hesitant to put anything out there until you think it's done. But get it to a point where it's good enough and put it out. It's never going to be perfect, so just put it out. And the example that I always think of is Toy Story. I remember reading this when I was younger, but the animators and filmmakers that made Toy Story literally were like, if we didn't have a deadline to get it into theaters, we'd be still working on the first Toy Story. There's always something to tweak, So, Toy Story is done and it's perfect and it's out there. So use Toy Story as the example.
There was something, when you talk about something you still work on, this morning, we were grounding ourselves and listening to our affirmations, doing what we do in the morning. And there was something that stood out to me. And I've listened to the same affirmation several times, but something that stood out to me today. And she was like, I am not a perfectionist. I'm an excellentist. And so that is, you saying that is just, that's so profound, and you don't even realize how profound it is. It doesn't have to be perfect. Stop striving for perfection. Strive for doing it the best that you can, and let that be enough.
Yeah.
Put it out there. You're going to continue to get better. You're going to do all of those things. So now, as we transition to you honing in your craft continuously, and you doing what all of this Coolman Dan stuff is there something that our community can do? Brent, we ask this to everyone we meet, anyone that's on the podcast, but we want to know if there's something in your life that a community could show up for you. What would that be to move your needle forward? Your big ask. If everyone could do X, Y, Z, this would move our needle forward.
For my brand specifically?
For
what
you,
I'm trying
for
to
your
do?
brand, it doesn't even, if it's for you, feel you know what, I really need a recommendation for a tailor in LA. Maybe that's your big ask, or maybe it's bigger than that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. If there's any cool baristas that's down to work a coffee truck. No, but I really, we were talking about Dan Maroney earlier, the reason that you and I met, a guy who specializes in building out the craziest trucks and buses that you could dream of, and He heads up the hoop bus, which is just this school bus that has a big old basketball hoop on it, and a lot of people have seen it out there. It's made the name for itself, huge in just like street ball culture and bringing people together, right? And they do a lot for kids, especially. But as I was telling you before, like when we dreamt this up over the summer, I'm like, I don't know who to partner with for this type of stuff. Like, we're gonna have to find the most niche person to partner with to do this. And we ended up meeting Dan Maroney at the Hoop Bus, and it was just like a match made in heaven, and this thing came together, right? So I'm a big fan of meeting people that are just so talented in their field, no matter how niche it is, because magic always happens that way. Especially if you're passionate about that niche topic and that niche craft, regardless of whether it's in a whole different field, right? I love meeting those people, and something cool always comes out of it. So if there's any people like that out there, I always ask them to hit me up and reach out, because I'm trying to spread this to be a worldwide operation and bring as many smiles and good vibes as I possibly can. And you need a good team to do that, and people that also deeply believe in the message. So anybody who's really good at whatever they are good at, I would say to reach out. I'm always trying to do cool things, so
You should drop, if that wasn't an expensive microphone, I would tell you to drop the mic, because that literally, we asked for what would move your needle forward, and the response is to elevate somebody else.
Yeah.
That is just, I'm done.
Well, I love people too.
Okay.
I like working with people.
We truly believe that we elevate ourselves by elevating others, and as long as you move forward with positive intentions and you're putting good out in the world, that it's going to come back tenfold. And we truly believe at our core that you are one connection away from changing your life. And that's, why we created the Elevate brand, because at the end of the day, we say this all the time, like, we just want to do cool shit with people that we like. Like,
100%.
And that's the goal, right? Like, we just want to do cool things with cool people and, like, spread love and positivity and light and, like, have a
good
great
time.
life.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I remember being in school and just being stuck in, like, math class or something, and just being like, there has to be more to life than this, man. I'm like doodling, and like I'm like, how can I do art for a living? I'm like, how the hell can I do this? And it's through meeting folks and doing stuff like this. And if you have a dream, there's a way to bring it to life, and it's through the people that you meet and them sharing that dream. So I'm thankful that my art can resonate with people that help me, that work with me to bring it to life. Like, that's a very special thing that is able to happen in my world. So yeah, and it's a pleasure when those people turn into friends or start as friends, so.
All right, and then we have these little coffee cans. So these are coming out soon?
Yeah, this is cool coffee. So this is me, going out on my own coffee venture, and we debuted these, during Art Basel as well, along with the truck, and it's just cool. It's, to me, coffee culture is like another unifying thing in the world. Such a universal experience. You could airdrop into a random city, somewhere you've never been before. You don't even have to speak the language, but if you go to the local coffee shop, you'll see the local vibe, and you'll meet the local people, and you'll see the local artists and the local, it goes back to like the Renaissance period. Like, the philosophers would gather at the coffee shop, to like ponder about life's meaning. So coffee is always just, today and throughout history, always such a, prominent place in people's everyday lives. And it's routine, and it's mental wellness routine. Nothing better than sitting down and having a nice cup of coffee to reflect or plan or, wind down even, So it just, I've always loved coffee for that reason. Coffee was always in my name, Coolman Coffee Dan. My characters are always sipping on coffee. So I was really passionate about someday starting my own coffee line. And that's what we debuted during Art Basel. And you'll be seeing plenty more of this in the near future. Different blends, different brews. And now we got the coffee truck to sling it out of, which is pretty cool.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your inspiring story, brightening the world's timeline. I know that's a big mission of yours. Be sure to be on the lookout for Coolman Coffee hitting stores soon. Find an event with the Coolman Coffee truck. Visit Panther Coffee if you're in Miami.
Yes.
So many ways to bring love and light to the world and just give back and inspire and elevate others.
I love it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks for being here.